Hi there and welcome back. We're going to do a quick little tour of Git. We're going to do it through one of my old group projects. So I had a group of students in summer 2025 that did a really great job with their branching and with GitHub or GitLab in general and their issue management. And so I figured this would be a really great group for us to work with. I'd like you to remember that I'm sort of showing this to you after their project is completed. So the state that they're in right now is they're not working on it because their course is finished. So some things might look a little bit odd because of that, but I promise I'll try to highlight those as we go. So we can come on over here. We can see that there's an issue tab, and that will just list all of the issues that they currently have. These are the open ones, the closed. Here's our mix of issues in all. But we're actually going to look at it through a couple different lenses. We're going to look at it instead of through issues, first the milestones and then the issue boards. So they had their milestones set up. They had 4 milestones, iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3, as are due in this course, and then a future that will never get touched, but they have their future as they were told to have. Each iteration, as we can see, is associated with the group. We can see that they had a start and end date. We can see that there was a release attached to each iteration and each milestone, and that at the end of each iteration, once it was closed, all tickets that were in that iteration milestone are also closed. So they did everything beautifully. They also have their issue board. You could have more than one board, see create new board, development, etc. But they had one board here for development. They had their open issues here. They had a feature tag, they had a user story tag, they had a dev tag, and they had a close tag. You can also always add more lists as well, and you can scope them here as well, which is very nice, depending on your labels, which I'll show you how to make as well. So they have their issue board. This allowed them to sort of see what was currently open and needed to be worked on, the different levels of them. You can make additional boards, like create a new board where you have open and closed, and then create a new list for actively working on so that people can sort of track the progress. Here you can see that they added a label for in progress, and that's how they kept track of what was actively being worked on. So if I click in progress, that's listed here. But of course that label should have been removed once it entered the closed phase, and it was not in this scenario. Alternatively, they also had for tasks that ended up being abandoned and closed for various reasons, they had a tag here as well for abandoned tasks. Okay, so this is sort of how they manage their project. If we come over here to issues, let's start by looking at the highest level. Let's find a feature. So let's search by label, and let's look for a feature label. We can see all of the things that they worked on here. So if we just pick one, doesn't really matter. We can see when the issue was created. We can see that they have their feature name. They have the description as well as the goal of the feature. They also have the priority listed and the cost that they estimated. In addition to putting that cost here, you'll notice that they also put it down here in time tracking. Estimate 32 hours, and then spent however much time they ended up spending on it, which in this case was significantly less tracked hours. You'll notice that they are making use, of the child items for their user story issues, and that they have linked items. So if there are bugs, we can see that these two down here are a bug and a bug. We can see that there was tests that had their own linked association here, and they also had their own development branches here. And I'll show you how they did this as well, because that is something I did mention in the videos. So at the feature level, they went, and if we dig one step lower here into their user stories, we can click on a user story. It will take us there. From the user story label, we can see a couple things. We can see who the parent item is right over here. We can see the related feature right here that they've tagged. We can see the linked items, which are different from the parent. We can also see, because these are their dev tasks, they made dev tasks and linked them here. We can see that they have their user story written in the format that's expected with the as a blank role, what you want to be able to do. I want to be able to see, etc., etc., etc. And they don't really have a because, but they do say that they want to have something that's trusted by the community, and that can kind of almost lead into so that I feel safe using my auction site or, whatever it might be. Here they have their time estimate of 3 hours. That was their original estimate. Whoops. It looks like somebody maybe made a change to the original estimate and changed it to say 10 hours when they realized it was going to take them 10 hours. But that's okay. That's all part of this. Here was originally only a 3-hour task and it took somebody 10 hours. That's pretty funny. We can always look at the activity down here and see kind of what got changed when and how things changed, right? So we can see that the original estimate was added here, and then the estimate was changed from 10 hours to 10 hours from 3 hours, and then some more time was being added to it before it got closed up. So it's very normal. I just think it's really funny when we can see stuff like that having occurred. But it's cool. And then within each of those user stories, they have their dev tasks. So, if we click, I clicked the wrong button there. If we click on the dev task, it opens it up right over here. We can see that the dev task is technical. They have their UI for getting the history. We can see what they needed. They said that they needed some panels that would do the following. They listed them all out. There shouldn't be any child items. That wouldn't make any sense. Dev tasks are the smallest thing, like the smallest unit of work that we work in. You can see that they have their linked items here, so the user story it's associated with, and that they still have their milestone attached to it, as well as their time tracking, which was all done so beautifully. This group did a really, really great job of this. Okay, the next thing that we want to look at here is, where did it go? I think it was on the feature, get your items. We want to look at the link to, here it is, development. How did they go about doing this, right? So they must have had a branch called feature, a feature branch for get your items. The work is done on it, and then they somehow managed to connect it back into their Git repository. So in order to look at that, I do want to look at one more thing quickly. I want us to go under code repository graph. I'll go ahead and I'll open that, and I'll actually also open the merge requests to show after. The repository graph is just like the ones that I showed in my lecture videos. So we come down here. We can see like at the beginning where it started and all the things that they did to sort of get themselves up and running in the beginning. Just sort of get a few things going on in there, get stuff, all their tickets and stuff created, etc. Then we can see where the branching started to happen. So we have a feature branch that was created. It looks like somebody did a couple of little offshoot development, but kept coming back in beautifully. And then once they were finished with it, they merged it back in. You can see the merge happen right there of that branch. Awesome. We can see a different branch was then created and checked out right here. And then after that work was completed, it was merged back in. In the beginning, we see it's pretty linear because the work that has to get done is somewhat linear. But after that, we do start to see a little bit more of what a traditional graph might look like. We see a few kind of interesting little dips in the graph, but for the most part, this group did a really good job of sticking to their main line, branching off their main line, and then coming back to it. And they did that a lot, and it looks great. What we can see here is the different colors are representative of like our different branches. Each of these dots are sort of the different commits that were happening within that branch, and we can see that most of the time branches got merged back in, and then they didn't continue on without, like the branch died, right? Like they deleted the branch. In a couple places we see that the branch sort of continued living, but it doesn't happen particularly often. Overall, this looks really, really good, and we see sort of the pattern we expect, which is branching off our main line, short-lived branches that come back in, and once they come back in, they are deleted. We can see right here where they did their first release, right, where version 1 is tagged, so that's awesome, and then we can see all of their attempts up until version 2 to work similarly. Iteration 2 started here, and they did the exact same thing until we hit the very end with our iteration 3. So this group did a really good job of sort of following this along, creating those very small short-lived branches and then bringing them back into their main line, keeping everything as up to date as possible. Now, the reason that I wanted to show you that first was because it does directly relate to our merge requests. So we can see that most of the not most, but a decent number of these merge requests did get approves on them. Some have actual threads started where things had to be resolved and comments occurred and work was done before it got merged in. But we can sort of see all of these living here. And what we can see is that each of these does have like this little number associated with it right here, right? We can see it right there. And if we remember back on this get your items, right here we had one, 49. So if we continue down through our merge requests, we actually will find the merge request 49 right here. Now, how did they actually make these two things connected to each other? Well, if we go into this merge request, we will see it is right here. So the implementation of feature, hashtag, whatever, 110, that linkage right there is what makes it connected back to this issue. And that's so important because now when a team member wants to go and make sure that the functionality that you're describing and the functionality that you actually did here matches what you expected it to be, they have an easy, quick link back to the original issue that the team decided on and discussed, right? So that's really, really fantastic. It was done beautifully. You can see that they named their branches so beautifully. Feat-110 suggests it's a feature, issue 110. We can see right up here, it is indeed issue 110. And then all of their code changes exist. In here, whoa, that keeps happening. As expected. Whoa, that was weird. As expected. Okay, so this should just sort of give you an idea of how people set up their GitLab repository, how they get their issues in here, how they track them, how you might want to get your labels set up. Oh, I said I would show you how to make labels. I believe it's in, I actually don't know what it's in. Planning, no, tags. Under code, tags. Nope, those are different. It's good. I have no idea, hey? Could have sworn it was under issues, but I don't see it anywhere. If I click on a label, what happens? Labels. Oh, you know what? When you're inside a label here, you can actually just edit and you can just create new project labels, or there we go, manage your project labels through manage. That's so funny. I couldn't even find it, but that's okay. Here we go. It's in manage. A bunch of these labels were actually created at the course level, which you will also have some things potentially created for you, but you are always able to go and make your own labels as well. New label, add some colors, add a description, give it a title, make use of, organizing yourself as much as possible here. Okay, so I think that that's it when it comes to sort of the basics of Git, navigating around it and organizing it in a really helpful way. There are, as previously stated, like already tutorials that you can go through to sort of interact with Git and pull code down and make meaningful changes. But there's so much, there's a lot of work that goes into maintaining your Git repository and issue status and doing it well. And it's really, really important. Like, your project will just be so much easier for you to maintain as a group if this is structured well. So I really wanted to make sure we had a chance to take a look at that and just sort of get a taste of some of the organizational features that exist. Cool. Okay, so thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.